Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Market Down Podcast. My name is Nick Cummings, joined this week by James Gisante. We are going to start with some news that came out the day of this recording concerning WWE, and that is that they are reportedly looking into legalized gambling on their product. According to CNBC, WWE is currently talking to state gambling officials in both Colorado, and Michigan concerning the legalization of gambling on WWE wrestling. WWE is trying to work with Ernst & Young, also known as EY, on a way to secure the match results in advance and not distribute them to wrestlers until hours before matches in an attempt to keep the match results from leaking. This company, along with some other accounting firms, do similar things with things like the Academy Awards and the Emmys in terms of securing the winners and keeping those in a safe place so that those results won't be leaked beforehand as well. Now, I will like to also mention that gambling is currently legal in Great Britain on WWE. You can pretty much just bet straight up there, which is pretty crazy. And WWE also has a sponsorship deal with DraftKings where you can participate in certain contests for money where you pick a certain number of things that you think may happen during the show from a list of options. It's usually about 10 things you have to get right that they give you. And the winners are all given a share of the money, or if you're the only winner, you get all the money, but that pretty much never happens. So, James, I know I'm a little more into gambling than you, but there is a lot to go with this. I think, obviously, this is a huge business opportunity for WWE, just to bring in gambling money, as it has been for other sports leagues where they can get these sponsorships and get official sports bettors of WWE. And while they have that with DraftKings, they can only expand with the legalization of gambling on wrestling within the United States. And also, too, that I think makes them more attractive to potential buyers as they allegedly look to sell the company.
I was all for this a second ago until you started giving the details. That notion that Ernst & Young or whoever it is it EY. Ernst & Young? Yes. EY would know the results to a match before the wrestler is in the match?
I don't think they would necessarily know, but they would keep the results under lock and key. That would be their role in this.
How can any wrestler want that? How can any wrestler want to not know the match they're in until hours before the show? Or not the match they're in, but the results of the match they're in until hours before the show. That seems insane to me.
Yeah, I agree, because even when we hear about those stories of, it usually ends up being WrestleMania, where people don't know the result until a couple hours right before their match starts. Like, I think Undertaker and Brock's match wasn't really decided upon until day of at WrestleMania in New Orleans. That would be A, insanely difficult, and B, if you're building a long feud,
like anything with the bloodline, anything with Roman Reigns. Exactly. Can you imagine?
Yeah, like especially in the long term, you would think the wrestlers would want to know the end point should you tell a long form story like with the bloodline, for example.
That sounds so bizarre to me, so counterproductive to a healthy product. But I don't know. I as a fan, that notion of being able to bet on WWE seems fun, seems cool, seems exciting. And I get it from a business standpoint. It does make them a lot more appetizing or more appealing to investors, to buyers. But this just from a creative standpoint, this sounds just awful.
Yeah, and it's not only the wrestlers not knowing. Building out something long-term obviously has its risks now. So if somebody gets injured, you have to change things on the fly. Or if there's a wrestler that gets insanely over out of nowhere, you sometimes need to add them to the main event of WrestleMania after they beat the COO of the company because, they have a really cool chant and you have to make them win. Just to, throw out a generic example there, but like things in wrestling change all of the time. Should you put the results in months in advance and lock that in, you're not really given the opportunity to change, because if you do that, you're screwing with the lines basically on a whim. And I understand Vince isn't there anymore, and he's not going to change things on a whim the way that, he's not there to change things on the whim the way he used to. Triple H is a lot more measured, I think, as we've seen so far. But wrestling requires like a bit of a
the ability to pivot, the ability to improvise. Yes, absolutely. Or take an instance where a wrestler, God forbid, gets severely injured during a match. You have to change the result. Let's go with Chris Jericho versus Pac in WWE back when he was Neville.
Yeah.
When Neville rolled his ankle, broke his ankle, and Jericho got Jericho got himself disqualified. Guaranteed Jericho wasn't going to lose that match, most likely.
Yeah, I don't know or remember what the result was supposed to be of that match. I assume it was Neville going over, because that's how Jericho ended up having him do it, because he was like, okay, the ref doesn't realize what's going on here. I got to make myself lose. But Neville can't pin me, so he figured it out. But depending on how they do the wrestling lines, that might impact a payout.
Yeah,
because if I have Adrian Neville in this instance by pinfall or submission, I lose unless gambling companies are willing to, basically acquiesce to the fact that, okay, if the result was it was supposed to be Neville by pinfall and Jericho got himself disqualified due to injury, we'll just negate that bet. And then what? They're not going to take my money?
Yep.
Gambling companies are not in the business of giving people their money back. So
lots of I never realized the can of worms this could open, but apparently it's a big one.
It's a lot.
A lot of worms.
And to talk about being able to pivot, go back to the bloodline, you look at something like Sami Zayn, this was not the plan.
Exactly.
They gave Sami, and I was just reading a Paul Heyman quote on it while looking up some stories for this episode. They gave Sami small breadcrumbs to work with, and he just consistently hit them out of the park until it built into this wonderful storyline that we have, first going into Elimination Chamber and now into WrestleMania. Sami Zayn was no way supposed to be at this level of challenging Roman Reigns for the Undisputed Universal Championship. But at least when it started, but if you had locked in Roman facing whomever at Elimination Chamber back in December, you're stuck with that, no matter what Sami Zayn is doing or how over he is.
And also think
booking.
Absolutely. And on another level too, look at this instance with The Rock, where we were all pretty sure The Rock was supposed to wrestle this year. He was a very big rumor. And then at the last minute, we hear he wasn't ready to do it. So if you have an instance where next year, a month ahead of Mania, The Rock says, you know what? I'm ready. I can do it. I could wrestle Roman. Are you not going to do it because you locked it in months ago? That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Or if a free agent just happens to, show up.
Cody Rhodes.
Yep. Like you couldn't even taken bets on Seth Rollins last year because we didn't know who his opponent was. We all had an inkling it was Cody, but there was an opportunity it could have been somebody else.
Yep.
So granted, maybe they would have taken bets on who's Seth Rollins' opponent, but I don't think you're taking bets on does Seth Rollins win or does his opponent win, because those odds drastically shift depending on who his opponent is.
I hate this so much now, and I never thought I would.
Yeah, it is a serious can of worms. It's one of those things why despite the fact I probably would have the ability to gamble on WWE, or at least I know places I could if I wanted to, I've never touched it because there's just too much variance in the matches and in how things are booked, and last minute changes. It's a mess.
I mean, realistically, betting on wrestling shouldn't feel any different than betting on any sporting event. because all those things you listed, like variables, all the things that could affect the outcome, that's the same thing with, say, football.
Yeah, I
That's-
mean, Brock Purdy getting hurt in the NFC Championship game completely screwed over
Yeah.
pretty much anybody who bet on the Niners.
So
I understand that, but I feel like this is a little different because it's predetermined. And then because if you can't keep this under wraps because the wrestlers don't want it that way, and it messes with creative to the point to too severe of a point where you can't keep the things under lock and key for months because A, people need to know, and B, plans change, as Uncle Dave likes to say. Then what? Then you got to prevent the leaks, and if leaks happen, then they're just going to be taking bets off the board left and right.
I also don't understand really. No, I do understand. I was going to say, I don't understand why the results being known should affect the betting, but it absolutely does, because if somebody knows it, it could be manipulated. But Jesus, this sucks.
Well, yeah, because if you know the bet, or if you know who wins, right? You could 100% manipulate the odds. You could start pumping in to whoever the other person is and try to raise or lower the odds of the opponent or the person is going to win, and then go from there. Or like if you get an inside tip on a serious underdog, you could bet them and not tell anybody, and everyone's betting the favorite, and then you win a bunch of money because you had the inside track. So I mean, you're just leading to like Tim Donaghy areas of corruption, where, for those of you who don't know, Donaghy was an NBA referee who was working with the mafia to help fix NBA games. Get the line, he would call fouls certain ways, or tell, the people he was working with that, oh, these refs have certain tendencies to do this, or we're going to emphasize this in tonight's game, and that's probably going to screw up this player. You should bet this team. And I mean, it worked. It honestly worked. So you're going towards that. And I just think knowing the outcome of something just creates way too many unpredictable and uncontrollable factors for both WWE and the gambling companies to try to keep in check. It's a Pandora's box, and even though it's legal in the UK, I understand that. It's just, I still don't understand how or why. Their gambling laws are a lot more lax, just generally, but it seems like such a mess. And with America's stricter gambling laws, it's either you have the mess that you currently have in the UK, or you create the mess that we discussed when it comes to creative and trying to keep everything under wraps without changing plans or telling your wrestlers what's going to end up happening. Let us move on now to some more WWE news, as they also announced that they will be having one of their premium live events, Backlash, in San Juan, Puerto Rico, with host Bad Bunny. Now, this, James, is the first live WWE event taking place in Puerto Rico since 2005.
Wow.
I'm Puerto Rican, so I'm hyped. I'm very excited for them, and this, I think, is going to be phenomenal. Everyone online is saying that this is going to sell out in like 2 seconds.
I can see that,
and I think it's going to be a very raucous crowd. But you're also seeing the expansion of WWE having their pay-per-views in other countries. Obviously, we just saw Elimination Chamber in Montreal, which we see pay-per-views in Montreal and Canada in general every once in a while. But we also recently saw one in the UK, right? It was in Scotland, I believe, or Wales. It was in one of the two. It was in Cardiff.
It was at a castle.
It was, yes, it was.
There was clashing.
Yes, I will double check where it was so I don't offend anybody.
It was Cardiff. UK. It was Cardiff.
I know it was Cardiff. I just and then it is Wales. Okay, so it was in Wales. You know why? Because I was like, well, Drew's Scottish, and I was like, so it wasn't in Scotland. It was in Wales. Okay, so yes, it was in Wales. I apologize to our UK brethren, but we saw one there as well. And like I said, we just saw the one in Canada, and now we're having one in Puerto Rico, which, while technically is a different country, we are still moving out of the continental United States into new territory. So, and I think that's a very exciting thing for WWE and wrestling as a whole.
I think so too. Wrestling doesn't belong to anybody. Wrestling doesn't belong to any one place or any one people. So this is awesome. I know Puerto Rico is a very big wrestling market. They have a lot of smaller companies there. And I think this is going to be the exact kind of thing that'll really boost that market for them, make it feel more important. Bad Bunny has proven consistently he's a draw for WWE. He gets people talking. So this is great. And I'm just all around, this feels like a win.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but Bad Bunny is so insanely over in Puerto Rico.
And not he's insanely over here.
He's insanely over everywhere, but like within the Spanish speaking community, like specifically, he is a mega star.
Yep.
Like we as mostly white people are like, yeah, we know his music, we listen to his hits, but but he like in the Spanish speaking, he is so just I hate using the word over because it's a wrestling term, and I'm talking about music, but he is beloved, and it's amazing how popular he is, and he's only going to add to the draw. I'm pretty sure historically as well, WWE has had, very strong ties with the Colones, who are a prominent wrestling family in Puerto Rico. So don't be surprised if, say, maybe Carlito is there, or
a long game, baby. We've all just been waiting for Carlito to come back,
or the Colon brothers, right? Who are, I think, also Los Matadores for a while. So
they are also a thing. Yes, yes, they are.
But depending on what the situation is heading into the pay-per-view, perhaps we get some cameos from any combination of those gentlemen. So I think there's a lot that WWE can do in Puerto Rico. I think it's going to be a great show. I think we're going to have a lot of fun watching it. I am also going to make sure, I was remiss in pointing out the fact that WWE has also had their premium live events in Saudi Arabia as well, even though they're getting paid a boatload of money to do that. But for the Saudi people, it's really cool that they get to see it. They've also run show. Obviously, WWE runs shows internationally all the time. They go to Europe. I think they've recently been introducing themselves more into India as well. So we're definitely seeing WWE try to be a more global brand in terms of live events. And I think that's another step forward towards that here.
Absolutely. Well said.
I'm so hyped. This is gonna be that card's gonna be
it's gonna be a fun show. It's gonna be a fun show.
It's gonna be like watching a Puerto Rican baseball game.
What would be a match that would get the crowd hyped? Like obviously Wales, Drew was the guy,
I imagine probably something with I'm sure Ray is probably very over there, just being, I know he's Mexican, but just being a Hispanic hero. Damian Priest has heritage, and I'm sure they will love him down there. So we'll see about that. And then anything involving Dom right now is just great. So basically anybody who speaks Spanish, they're gonna love.
All right,
so
cool.
Maybe,
cool.
Santos Escobar, perhaps Selena. And I'm just ripping off, the Latino contingent of WWE.
Yeah.
But people who speak their language. Quite literally.
I said it with Drew in Wales. Like, you want to rep?
Yeah, because people in the entirety of the UK love Drew, even though he's representing Scotland first and foremost. But he's still one of theirs, so to speak. So I loved back in tennis when Andy Murray was like a star. He was always he's Scottish when he's British when he wins, and he's Scottish when he loses. And then he finally won a Wimbledon, and everyone was like, "Oh, this British champion." And everyone was like, "But he was Scottish up until this year." But yeah, like I said, I think even before we get to the matches, I'm just looking forward to this crowd. It's going to be insane. If you've ever seen a Puerto Rican Day parade or a Puerto Rican baseball game in Puerto Rico, they go nuts. It's going to be a really, really, really good time. That's going to be a fucking party. Get your nutcrackers ready. It's going to be great.
Very excited.
Let us do one last story here. We will be shifting over to AEW and some of the fallout that has come from Revolution, where during the 60-minute Iron Man match for the main event that saw MJF face Bryan Danielson for the AEW title in what many are calling the greatest Iron Man match of all time. There was a point during the match that MJF took a drink from a patron and threw it on a child. Apparently, MJF had taken a drink from the child's mother and threw tequila in the kid's face. So a lot of people at the time were going, as it happened, were going back and forth over whether this was a great heel move or just an absolutely dick move. And it's pretty much turned out to be the latter. Obviously, the child's name was Titus. His mother was enraged, and Amanda Huber went out there to help smooth things over, talk to the mother and the kid. The kid was given some promotional items and was able to go backstage for a while, where he met Powerhouse Hobbs. Tony Khan also went and met with the two of them. And Tony went on to say during the media scrum that he sat MJF down and talked to him about it, as this was a very serious matter and it should be taken seriously. And he called it, he said it was a conduct unbecoming of a champion. And that he also said that he apologized to Titus and invited him to a future AEW show. So, James, obviously, I think the first thing we could say is don't throw drinks on kids. But I understand in the heat of the moment, MJF working, just trying to be the ultimate dick he can be. But this turned out very poorly for him and the company. But I think Tony and Amanda Huber and everybody else did a very good job of handling this, for lack of a better phrase. I don't want to say this job was handled, but I think they did a good job of just coming out, admitting they were wrong, apologizing, and trying to do right by Titus and his mother.
Woof.
Yeah.
You know, like, did MJF know that there was tequila in that drink? No. Maybe just avoid it in general, just to be safe. Maybe.
Also, how do you not know tequila is not in the drink? You can smell tequila from a mile away.
All right. I'm willing to bet the man who had blood pouring down from his face and was sweating profusely maybe didn't smell the tequila. I'm willing to give that to him.
Touche.
But again, for argument's sake, let's not take the chance. Was it an incredible heel moment? Yes. Was it worth it? No. I'm glad the kid had a happy ending. I'm glad the kid got to, meet Will Hobbs. I'm glad he got to go backstage. I'm glad he got some nice stuff given to him. But Jesus, if I was his mom, I would have demanded VIP tickets for the remainder of that kid's fandom.
But, yeah, because this obviously opened them up to a lawsuit. And, they did everything in their power to avoid that. And quite frankly, they still probably could be. Because I think, obviously, there is a way to, screw with kids. This isn't it. You could be the heel and mess with kids, whether you're just kind of like, jawing them a little bit or like ignoring them or psyching them out or whatever it is. That's one thing. Or, they have set up spots before to screw with kids. WWE actually, a report came out just the next day from Raw that they had a spot set up where somebody was going to throw a drink in a kid's face. And they
no, it wasn't a kid's face. It wasn't a kid's. It was just they had a drink spot set up that they got rid of.
Yeah, they immediately canned it because they just were like, you know what? We don't want to make it look like we're making fun of AEW. They didn't even do it just because it was a bad look following night after it happened to a kid, but they just didn't want to make it look like they were taking a shot at AEW or be associated with that, to be quite honest. But you had that not happen, and then WWE did it. That's a really good pre-planned move, I think. Also, to go, pre-planning match. I don't know if this one was pre-planned, but when Sasha Banks stole Izzy's like headband, the tiara, or whatever it was, during her and Bayley's 60-minute Iron Woman match back in NXT, that's one of my favorite heel spots of all time. Because that is one of my favorite matches of all time, and personally, I think one of the best Iron Woman matches ever as well. Just because I thought the work in general, and that was great. Just the character work in general, that was great, and that was the peak of all of that. So Now, I don't know if Izzy was in on it. I assume she probably was.
She was not. She was not.
But
one, I heard that she wasn't, and two, that reaction was too good for a kid who wasn't like an actor.
fair. But she had been so involved in Bailey's storyline that it just kind of worked. And I think she probably understood what was going on after. But either way,
I don't think she's holding a grudge against Sasha Banks.
Yeah, but that's the line, I think. You know, like, because that's the line. Because anything past that is just getting physical with the kid, which I think this, liquid throwing incidents, for lack of a better phrase, was. And I think that's nowhere you want to be.
I agree. All
right. So
I think we all learned a valuable lesson.
Yeah, don't throw shit at kids. Even though it looks really, really funny on America's Funniest Home Videos. I still can't, not only can I still not believe that's still running, I didn't know that Carlton Alfonso Riviera was hosting it until.
Is he still?
Sunday. Yeah.
I knew he did a while ago. That's awesome.
He's still, I still think, what's his name? Tom, was it Tom with a B?
Bergeron.
Yeah, Tom. I still think he hosts it every time it comes up, and then I see Carlton run out. I'm like, Oh, right, it's Alfonso. All right. Anyway, I digress. That's all the news we have for the show today. It hasn't been the busiest week, but some big stories obviously coming out from WWE. So it was pretty cool to talk about them. So if you want to hear us talk about more shit, be sure to like and subscribe. We have the Gym Pack Zone / Gym. It's Gym Pact of Honor now, I think.
James? I don't know. Still being workshopped.
We're workshopping it. But James will be reviewing Impact and Ring of Honor tonight. So be sure to tune into that. I might crash it. I don't know. We'll see. I do sometimes. I just kind of like crash your show and Danny's Raw fast forwards on Monday.
I will gladly take
now. It really depends on what I'm doing. But yes, be sure to like and subscribe for both of those shows and our weekly Dynamite reviews on Wednesday. Again, live right after the show for all three of those. Also, be sure to check out all of our social media stuff in the description below. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I always highly recommend the Instagram. Danny does great meme work over there. And if you want to follow along with us during pay-per-views, I tend to live tweet the pay-per-views. So yeah, follow us on Twitter for that stuff as well. So for James Gisante, my name is Nick Cummings. Thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you here next time on the Mark It Down podcast. Have a good one, everyone.